So they said creators who use the test and compare, on average, overall, get more watch time. Interesting, number one. Watch time is what they are pretty much tracking with the tool, right? They're giving us watch time share across the thumbnail. So clearly YouTube cares about watch time. And the fact that that was their basically one statistic that they would share with us is also very telling, I think, because the whole point of this tool is for YouTube to get more watch time, right? Like, yes, it'll help creators, but why does YouTube want to help creators? They want to help creators so that they get more watch time, so that YouTube can run more ads, so that they can make more money. I don't fault them for that. It's a business. But that is where YouTube's mind is at. And when they make a statement like, on average, overall, that means they're not really looking at channels that are being harmed or hurt. There are some channels that will get less watch time than others. And one thing that they pointed out that I think really speaks to that is they said, you made 2 thumbnails. It's like, okay, I'm running the A/B test. One's really good. One happens to not perform as well. They did say that second thumbnail can pull down the performance of your video. You need to be pretty sure when you go to run an A/B test that thumbnail A and thumbnail B are good thumbnails. That is dangerous. New creators, people who are learning YouTube, a lot of times don't know the difference between a good thumbnail and a bad thumbnail.
Welcome back to Creator Files. I'm Julia.
I'm Nathan.
Thanks for being here. So we're talking again about the thumbnail tester because we actually met with the engineers at YouTube who are working on the software.
Pretty cool opportunity.
Really
honestly.
Awesome. Yeah. So what spurred that, if you don't know, which you probably do if you've been here for any amount of time, is that we made a video about some tests we had done with the thumbnail tester. We've been doing tests for about 7 months, found some really weird things, mostly that the thumbnail tester seemed to be broken. So we knew this was that we were doing control tests. And so instead of A, B, C tests, we were doing AA tests or AAA tests and getting a wider spread on those than on the other ones. If that doesn't make sense, go watch some of our other videos. I don't want to go into explaining it all again because we've covered it before. Yeah. So after we published that video, well, some more backstory. Let's go back further.
There's a lot leading up, like literally like 6 or 7, maybe even 8 months.
Yeah. So when we first started noticing this, we had the beta version. And so I wanted to let them know because that's the point of being a beta tester is communication. So I did, and they acknowledged it very briefly. Didn't seem overly concerned.
Yeah.
To put it lightly. They're kind of like, okay, yeah, the person we were talking to said he'd pass it on to the engineers. That was Renee Richie. And then that was about it. Like, didn't hear a lot more. So kind of thought, okay, well, they're not really addressing this.
Right. When you told them about it, the vibe, again, this is all reading the vibes here.
Yes.
But it didn't feel like it was a big deal to them. That was what it felt like. I think that's really important context. And you kind of mentioned like, it doesn't seem like they're going to really do anything. But it really felt like, okay, well, it's not going to be perfect.
Absolutely.
That was the thing. But it was just like, okay, no, we're not talking about perfect. We're talking about functional, period. It's not functional at all. And it was concerning.
Yeah. Yes, very much so. Yeah. It wasn't a matter of perfect. I think that's crucial because it got so bad based on our tests, especially at that time, that it would have been as good as a coin toss or a magic 8 ball because we had a wider spread on the control tests. So if you're seeing that the control test, you get 80% on one and 20% on another, and those are the exact same thumbnails, then can you trust it when you have 2 different thumbnails? You say, 75 on this one and 25 on this other one. Does that mean that the 75 one is a better thumbnail? Now, fast forward a bit. We published a video about this because, like you said, they were very much, my impression was very much that they were like, oh, well, it's been a long time. We have to get it out anyways. Yeah. Didn't feel like they cared. So we made a video about it. Once the real version released, it was out of beta and everybody had it. We made a video about it. And we also did a few more tests just to make sure that that was still accurate. Now, some of them were close, just as some of them when we were doing the beta testing were close, because we did dozens and dozens of tests. Not all of them had a super wide spread. But overall, when we averaged it out, the control tests had more of a spread than the non-control tests, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It means it doesn't work. So we did a few more. We didn't have time to do 8 months more of testing, but we did a few more tests, and about 50% of them had control tests that still said winner, even though they weren't. And YouTube's documentation says that winner means statistically significant.
Right.
So it appeared we still had the problem even after it was out of the beta version. So we made the video about this, and then I would say most of the comments, people seem to get it and agree. I mean, not agreeing is fine, but a lot of the comments, probably the most common complaint, I think, was people were saying, well, doing an AA test isn't how the tool was meant to be used, so it's breaking it. And once we talked to the YouTube engineers, they were like, yep, that's how we're testing it too. Keep doing AA tests. Like, that's a valid way to test this. They did ask us to separate our data from pre-beta or pre-release from post-beta. So we are doing that now. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. It's just such a lot. There's so much. I know we've talked a lot about it on this podcast, on the Channel Makers YouTube channel. It's because there's a lot going into this. And I think that this is such a big feature. Like we've said it 1,000 times, but they've been working on this for over 12 years, probably on and off. But like, that's a big deal. They've been teasing it and, trying to get people excited for it. And can we not also, we need to talk about the rollout, the way that they rolled the tool out. We didn't hear anything about it for like 6 or 8 months, and then all of a sudden, boom, it was just rolling out of nowhere. It was so weird. And they put out some videos about it. The videos didn't really get much traction. It almost felt like a sneaky rollout. And
Let's give a quick play-by-play of that.
Yeah, so you can start on that.
So like you said, 12 years ago, they first started talking about this. Apparently, they had mentioned it in a meeting at Vid Summit in 2012, I suppose it was. And we talked to somebody, interviewed him, John, and he was saying that he was in a meeting where they passed out little pamphlets about how it was hopefully releasing soon. And then he didn't hear anything about it. And so they've been off and on mentioning it for about 12 years. Yeah. Last year at Vid Summit, so that was September of 2023, they had this big keynote about it and said, yep, it's releasing and we're already, rolling it out slowly. We've rolled it out to, first, I don't know, a couple thousand and 10,000, 20,000, slowly rolling it out to more and more creators. And they were saying probably early next year. Is that what they said?
Yes. Yeah, like February.
Yeah. And then we didn't hear anything.
Like literally nothing. Radio silence. It was like, okay, it's supposed to be here, but they're not saying anything. It's kind of weird.
Maybe shouldn't have been surprising given the 12-year track history, but it still felt a little surprising.
Yeah.
And then, which kind of made me hopeful. I thought, well, maybe they decided to fix it. Maybe they don't like that it doesn't work, and they decided to fix it before it rolls out. And that still may have been true based on the conversation we had with the engineers. About a month ago, we just noticed that we had it on a couple more channels.
Right. Yeah. I think was it Cody?
Yeah.
Our video editor. He had started a brand new channel or something, and he saw, oh, I have the A/B tester on here. And then we checked a couple of the other channels that we have around here. It's like, oh, this one does, but this one doesn't. This one big channel that we have has it. This one smaller channel doesn't. But then this medium-sized channel does. It was just like completely random.
Yeah. Which we had it on Channel Makers because we were invited into the beta group in end of November.
Right. Yes. That was very intentional.
Yeah.
Yes. We were part of this beta program, but then as soon as it started rolling out, like even before they announced it, I think Cody noticed.
Oh, yeah.
And then the next day, some of the channels that didn't have it before started getting it, and more channels, but it was still very random and kind of sporadic. Like there was no really rhyme or reason why a channel would have it versus why it wouldn't. There were some brand new channels with 0 videos that would have the A/B tester, but then there was a channel with a couple that we noticed between 5 and 20,000 subs. No thumbnail tester. It was just weird. Like, why?
That's how it was for me. My channels with the most subscribers didn't have it. Yeah. And my, throwaway channels that I just used to browse YouTube with 5 subscribers were getting it sooner. Weird. So people just slowly noticed it, and there started to be kind of a buzz about it on, community posts and Reddit and a little bit on social media where people were like, are you guys seeing this? Do you have the tester? But they didn't say anything about it for a long time, maybe about a week. And then they released a video saying, it's here. If you don't have it yet, you'll have it soon. In the coming weeks. Very vague still. Finally, once it seemed to be on every single channel, they released another video that was more of a trailer type, more cinematic than the first little talking head video. And that was in the notifications on like the YouTube studio page.
Yes.
So the first video where they announced it got like 20,000 views. It was not very many. And then this next one where it was on the YouTube studio, like creator announcements, that one got like 200,000.
Yeah. So just weird circumstances.
Yeah.
Anyway, we released our video. Renee Richie ended up commenting on our video and saying, yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the testing you've done. I think that you might be missing something. We responded back and he's, said, oh, well, we'd love to have you guys talk with some of our engineers and see if we can, figure out like, did we miss something? Did you guys miss something? That sort of conversation.
He's the creator liaison.
Yes.
So he was the one that announced it at Vid Summit last year, but admittedly he's not an engineer. And when we bring in problems, he says, yeah, I'll check with the engineers or things like that. So he's kind of the go-between helping us all stay in contact.
Yeah. So anyway, we, got the meeting set up. I think one of the first things we talked about in the meeting was this, level of confidence. So without getting too statistical here, basically when you're running tests in statistics, you want a level of confidence. Typically it's 95% is sort of this golden standard. You want to be 95% confident. We don't know what what confidence level they're using on the thumbnail ABC tester. And so that was one of the first questions we asked was like, help us know what the confidence level is so that we can be more confident ourselves in the value of the tool. And they were like, we're not telling you, sorry. And the reasoning they gave for not telling us is that they're still testing things. They're still changing things. They're adjusting things. What they did say is early on in the beta of the tool, the confidence level was significantly lower than it is currently. And they said it led to getting some of these types of results that we were seeing. And as time went on, they said they did increase the level of confidence. And then at one point, again, they were just sort of like hinting and sort of beating around the bush of what the confidence level was, but they said it should be greater than a 50% confidence level, which is, there's still value there, but it's not great, obviously. If 95% is the golden sort of standard, 50% pretty far below
Pretty darn rough. And I would say most people would not consider that statistically significant. I don't think there's any percentage definition officially, but it means unlikely to happen by chance.
Right.
And that was another thing I brought to them because they said, well, it was gotten better. Like, yes, you're right. It was too quick to jump to conclusions before, and we made it better. But then I said, well, we've run some tests since. Obviously not a huge sample size, but we're doing all we can do. We ran tests for 8 months, and now we're trying to get the word out when it released all of a sudden, Let's say there's a 95% confidence interval. And then we run 4 tests since the release in that week, and 2 of them came back with a winner label, which they said, because they have inconclusive, which means we're not sure. They have the preferred label, which means we're pretty sure this one's better, but there isn't enough data to be sure. And then the winner label, which they say is statistically significant. Okay, so we have 2 videos that have that winner label that we did a control test on, an AAA test out of 4. So 50% of the videos.
Right.
Not a big sample size, but still, it's like, okay, well, you could spin a wheel with 100-sided dice 2 times, and it's possible that you land in that 5% twice.
Right.
But it doesn't make me feel confident. Yes, especially since they're not even saying it's 95%. They're saying we don't want to tell you, but it's good. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
It is hard to know. They did say one other thing they said is that the preferred label, which means, so there's winner, which would be most confident, essentially.
Yeah.
Preferred, which is less confident, but still confident. And then inconclusive, which is not confident, essentially.
Yeah.
Without having any numbers. They did say that even the preferred label is, they said, far above 50%. So basically preferred might mean 60% confidence, maybe 70%. We don't really know. But if preferred is somewhere between 60 and 70, and that means maybe the winner is somewhere between 70 and 85. I don't know. We don't know the numbers, but hopefully they are, I don't know, hopefully the way that they're building the test is actually in a way that will be confident enough that it's actually going to help creators.
Yes.
I think that that's my big concern is at the end of the day, I don't really need to know, is it a 95%? Is it a 90%? I just want to be confident in the tool. And the fact that we've done this testing and the results just weren't great, we don't have confidence in the tool.
Right.
And even after talking to them, I still don't have confidence in the tool. Maybe a little more just because I know that their numbers are supposedly above the 50% threshold. It's like, it gives me an idea of where the confidence could be potentially. They did say to continue testing, which I think we're going to continue to do that because we do want to hopefully get to a point where we could trust the tool. But the reality is at this point, we're still getting enough odd results that it doesn't feel like we can. And Julia, you mentioned earlier that our data set is small. And it's like, yes, it is small, but that's the reality of any creator on any channel. You can't say, oh, well, sorry, your data set's too small. It's like, well, if I publish once a week or even twice a week, that's not very many times. Like even over the course of a year, that's not that much data. And so if I need to test for myself to understand, what the spread is on my tests for AA versus AB, if I need to, do enough tests on my channel to figure out, what the confidence interval is that I can, calculate myself, I'm only going to be able to accumulate so much data over a large period of time. And so YouTube is really wanting us to rely on them and to just be confident in them.
Just trust it.
But I have a really hard time with that because I want to collect my own data. I want to be confident myself that the tool works. But given the small amount of data that they're giving us in the tool, it's very, very difficult to be confident.
And they've released things prematurely before.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it depends on your definition of prematurely, but I feel like they've not been completely transparent about where things are at.
Right.
And I understand that for a beta version or even something that's really early on, you need users to figure out how it's working. But it's scary. Like with shorts ruined a lot of channels because they were tracking the data with the long form data. And so it looked like you had a bunch of videos that weren't getting enough watch time. It was really rough and it messed up people's channels. So they should have said, hey, for now, either have a shorts channel or a long form channel, or you could try shorts, but just be aware it's a little risky, something.
Yeah.
And they didn't. Maybe they didn't. No, I don't know. Benefit of the doubt. But it's like they have a history of this.
Right.
So that makes it even harder to trust them.
Yeah.
Another thing is with the confidence interval, like they assured us that it's over 50%.
Mm-hmm.
From our data, it appears to be a coin toss. So you'd be just as likely to figure out which thumbnail is better if you flipped a coin.
Yeah.
And I wonder how they're measuring that. Are they saying, because another thing they said is, well, Jimmy Donaldson, Mr. Beast, wouldn't be using it if it didn't work. Okay. He has the biggest sample size in the world on YouTube, pretty much. I mean, there's a couple kids channels I think get more views than him. Pretty much. Yeah. He's the biggest. He has videos that have gotten more views than the Super Bowl. That's not a good measuring.
That's not the benchmark that we're all looking for.
Exactly. Just because it works for him doesn't mean it works on my small channel at all. Right. He has such a huge sample size that yes, the more people you have, the more tests you run, the more people you have, the more it does level out. But for small channels, that doesn't make me super confident that they're saying, that is necessarily well above 50% for small channels.
Mm-hmm. Okay, another thing that they brought up, which may make you feel confident at the beginning, but listen to this. So they said, overall, channels, across YouTube, looking at data on channels that use the thumbnail A/B tester as a whole versus those that don't, there is more watch time being generated utilizing the ABC test and compare tool than without it, if that makes sense. So basically they're saying creators who use the test and compare on average overall get more watch time. And it's like, okay, interesting, number one. Watch time is what they are pretty much tracking with the tool, right? They're giving us watch time share across the thumbnail. So clearly YouTube cares about watch time. And the fact that that was their basically one statistic that they would share with us, if you can even count that, is also very telling, I think, because the whole point of this tool is for YouTube to get more watch time, right? Like, yes, it'll help creators, but why does YouTube want to help creators? They want to help creators so that they get more watch time, so that YouTube can run more ads, so that they can make more money. Like, and I don't fault them for that. It's a business. But that is where YouTube's mind is at. And when they make a statement like, on average, overall, those types of things indicate to me that there is some positive, like overall, yes, increased watch time. That means they're not really looking at channels that are being harmed or hurt. There are some channels that will get less watch time than others. And one thing that they pointed out that I think really speaks to that is they said, if you publish, like if you're going to run an A/B test, let's say you do a really great thumbnail. You happen to have a great thumbnail. And then you have a thumbnail that's just not really good. You know, you made 2 thumbnails. It's like, okay, I'm running the A/B test. One's really good. One happens to not perform as well. They did say that that second thumbnail can pull down the performance of your video. And you think, okay, well, how do I know if there's going to be a good thumbnail or a bad thumbnail? Isn't that the point of the test, is to find the good thumbnail? Yes, it is the point of the test. But basically what they said is you need to be pretty sure when you go to run an A/B test that thumbnail A and thumbnail B are good thumbnails. So it's not I'm just going to run thumbnail A and then in 5 minutes put together a thumbnail B just to happen to see if it's going to do better. That is dangerous. That is a dangerous thing to do. And I don't know, it just made me scared, I think, for small creators, because small creators, new creators, people who are learning YouTube, a lot of times don't know the difference between a good thumbnail and a bad thumbnail. And so you might say, well, you know, they just have better chances by doing 2. And that's maybe true. But what if they had just done 1 and it actually would have helped their video do better?
Using their own judgment.
Right.
It's surprising how often I've noticed around the office when we have multiple thumbnail options and we ask, we're like, which one's the best? Usually pretty unanimous. Not always, but usually pretty unanimous. Another thing is, so you have a really good thumbnail and maybe you want to just test 2 versions of that, right? Because you're like, well, this thumbnail's solid, but I want to try to change the colors a little bit or changing one word or something small. I notice a lot of people just want to make a small change because you don't want to try to come up with 2 completely different concepts, especially if one does seem a lot better than the other. But YouTube says only test major differences. Probably because the tool doesn't work very well for small differences. You
need a lot more data in order for it to really be able to take small differences into account.
That's it, yes.
I don't know, what is it, 5,000-ish impressions that they need before the tool will even start really working for you.
Even showing you percentages, let alone a result.
And so that just means like if 5,000 impressions is the baseline, that's not near enough in order for it to recognize the difference, you know, of a red tie versus a blue tie or whatever. Like it's just not going to be that for you. And so if you have a really good thumbnail, but you want to test 2 different colors, that's probably not the right tool. It probably really isn't a great tool for that. I don't know. It's just not all that everyone hoped for it to be. And again, maybe that feels like the mission we're on here in helping people understand what's going on with the tool here is it's been so hyped in the past. People have waited so long. There have been so many creators over so many years who have hoped that this would be their golden ticket to success on YouTube. It's like, if I could just get my thumbnails testing. It's like, yes, that would be good. But the tester is not that.
Yeah.
It can be helpful in some cases, given that it works. But even if it works, it's still not going to be that golden ticket. You still have to create 2 good thumbnails or 3 good thumbnails in order for them to realistically run.
Yeah, and I wish they'd be more upfront with those kinds of things. Yes. Like, I mean, the YouTube engineers were upfront with us, but just a little release video that 200,000 people watched, and you know the way they announced that it's like, don't worry, we're beta testing it with larger and larger groups, and all of a sudden they're like, it's out.
Right.
Well, in my opinion, they should still be saying it's available for beta for everyone, but very clear that it's still beta. Okay, so I want to go back though to something. We've got more to cover too. There's bugs too, so
yes,
going to get to that. But you said, and I can't remember how they phrased it in the meeting. They said that the watch time, the overall watch time, is better for creators that use it. Did they say like when that creator is using it, or just the creators that are using it? So are they saying when Mr. Beast uses it, his watch time is higher versus when he doesn't use it? Or are they saying all the creators that use it are higher than all the creators that don't?
It felt more general to me. It didn't seem like on a channel by channel basis. It felt like more like overall, we're just seeing increased watch time.
That means absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Like I'd want to know how they're running that test.
Yeah. If that's how they're running it though,
Right.
they're just saying there's a correlation. Yeah. Especially since they initially released it to the largest creators first for the first 8 months.
Right.
They started with huge creators. And then just the last couple of weeks, a week before we talked to them, said, release it to smaller creators.
Yeah.
And then they're saying, oh, the creators that use it, well, duh.
Yeah. I would want to know what their methodology is there.
Yeah.
Like, how do they draw that conclusion?
I'm not saying that's how they, but if that is how they are measuring it, useless. Maybe that's not, just skeptical.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to be skeptical in these cases because they've given us reason to be skeptical. And I should also add, they encouraged us to continue to be skeptical.
Yeah, they were awesome in the meeting. To be very clear, we're being really hard on them still. The engineers were awesome. Yeah.
Like, I think, Julie, you even said to them, like, we can't go back out on YouTube and say, you guys should use this. And I said, that's fine. Yeah. Just keep testing it. Encourage people to test it and to send feedback in. Now, I would say that we're going to keep testing it, but we understand pretty well the risks associated with that testing. Anyone listening in any audience that we have, you need to be well aware of the risk. We've talked through some of them here. If you have a bad thumbnail and a good thumbnail, the bad thumbnail can hurt your video. Just having the test on doesn't always mean that it's going to help your video. It could end up hurting your video. Like, you just need to be very aware that you are sort of taking a fall for the sake of for the creator economy, I guess you could say. We're going to do that just because that's what our channels are about. We like to test things. It is likely that we'll have videos performing worse than we would if we were not using it. Yeah. And so we want to encourage people to test, but at the same time, I don't want people to do it if they're not prepared for the potential consequences.
Yeah, it's risky.
Yeah.
Could it help your channel? Yeah.
Could.
That's another weird thing. This is kind of just tearing away from the engineering conversation, but, well, they confirmed some of this. So we talked to some people who were having actual bugs. Mm-hmm. One gentleman specifically made a whole video about it. And he featured part of our video in that video, but his problem was different. He was saying his is broken because he put 2 custom-made thumbnails up for the thumbnail tester, 2 thumbnails he made himself, not like the automatic thumbnail generator. What's it called? Thumbnail generator?
Yeah, like
where it
auto-generate.
Auto-generate, yeah, where it picks the screenshot.
Yeah, it shows you like 4 or 5 different screenshots. You can just pick one.
Yes, he didn't do that. Yeah. He made 2 of his own thumbnails on Canva or Photoshop or whatever. Puts them up on the thumbnail tester, and he even shows his home screen. Like, it's clear that he did it correctly. Mm-hmm. It's running the test. And YouTube just started showing a screenshot. Like
one of those auto screenshots, essentially, is what it looked like.
As the thumbnail. Right. And so he even asked in the comments of this video he made about that, like, on this other video, what thumbnail have you guys been seeing? And everyone in the comments was saying that screenshot. Even on the watch next to the video, when I watched it that he was making about this problem, the watch next was that video that he was talking about on his channel. And it did still have that screenshot. And it was so funny because he was going to the analytics page to look at like which of the 2 thumbnails he uploaded was performing better, and it said not enough data yet because it wasn't even running either of those. Yeah. And then the engineers did admit to that being a problem.
Yeah,
they said they're working on.
They'd seen it in beta. It sounds like it's still a problem.
Yeah,
I just think that, I don't know. Maybe from the engineer's perspective, maybe from YouTube's marketing perspective, they just expect, when you work in the world of development, you expect bugs. Like, bugs are normal. They happen. Sometimes you click on something, it doesn't do what you want it to do. So I don't know if it's just like such a normal thing. Like, I mean, we even have built, WordPress plugins and Chrome extensions and things like that here at Channel Makers and Income School. And they have bugs, different things update, the inner things. I don't know. There's just so much. There's so many variables there that bugs are normal. But to the everyday YouTube creator, they're not thinking that way. They're not thinking about the bugs or the problems. And like, if that guy hadn't really been watching very closely, he could have tried to run this test and he might have never known that was showing a terrible thumbnail.
And the other thing is, bugs are normal.
Yes.
And if you have a little habit tracking app and it has a bug, whatever. If you have a bug on Instagram,
right?
Your home feed, whatever. Who cares? Go read a book.
Right.
But if you have a bug on a video you put a lot of time into, not only that one video, but that can hurt the rest of your channel for a long time, especially if you're a small creator. That's a big deal.
Yep.
A bad thumbnail can make it look like you published a bad video.
Yeah.
And then the algorithm starts treating your channel Like, I mean, and they say it's on a video for radio basis, but we know there's more to it.
Yeah, there is more to it. We know that YouTube is momentum based to some extent.
Yes.
And so when you lose all of that momentum, it's going to hurt. It will hurt. To some extent, it will impact your channel. Every video either impacts positively or negatively. It just does. Yes. We know it does.
It's a very high consequence bug.
It is.
Like if your bank account is showing you
right
misinformation, that's risky.
Right.
So I think that's the difference here. Like, yeah, I don't want to be too hard on them for having a new feature that has a bug, but it is a big deal to a lot of creators if that happens. It's not a small thing.
Yeah.
Another thing people are saying why they think this is happening, and I love that.
Mm-hmm.
It was so exciting, and a lot of people had good ideas that I hadn't even thought of why this might be happening. But then there were several people that also commented with, it's not broken because this is probably why it's happening. You know, like because YouTube's showing it to two completely different groups, or because, you know, maybe one person clicks and watches for a long time and then another person got stuck in traffic and didn't finish watching for unrelated reasons, not because of the thumbnail.
Right.
Agreed. There are variables like that. We're not claiming that the data that it's showing us is a lie. Mm-hmm. Like I believe that even with the control test, that they showed thumbnail A and that this is the actual data from the people that clicked on thumbnail A versus the actual data that people clicked on from thumbnail B. But that doesn't mean it's a tool you can trust.
Right.
If a control test shows very different results, then you have no way of knowing which one's better.
Yeah.
In a non-control test, even if it says this one's way better, you don't know that because I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
If I'm missing something, let us know in the comments because I'm curious why this keeps coming up.
I really don't think that we are. I mean, talking to the engineers, they took those variables into consideration.
Yes.
Now, what we don't know is how are they sending this out to air quotes audiences? What does that mean? You know, how are those audiences randomized? You know, if there is a large enough sample size and it's correctly randomized, then your data is going to be accurate. It doesn't matter if one person clicked on the video and then only watched for 10 seconds because of unrelated reasons, and then one person stayed on. That doesn't matter. If the sample size is large enough, there's enough room there for that to happen multiple times across both groups and potentially sort of even out. That's the idea of a randomized test, which is what YouTube is most likely running. But again, it all comes back to their methodology. You know, the sample size that they're running. Is 5,000 impressions enough? Is it not enough? Because at the end of the day, the data is going to be right if they are randomly sending out to enough people. Mm-hmm. I think that's the end of it. Like it's going to be good enough. And then obviously you need to take into account tons and tons of other factors with the algorithm and that sort of thing. But I get it. It's complicated. It is a complicated tool to try and implement. I think at the end of the day, my biggest problem with it is the messaging and education around it.
Yeah. If
they had put it out and said, you know what, we're really excited to release this. Maybe it's still in beta, but for everybody now, which is kind of funny because a lot of times it still has the beta tag on it if you look on the back end of the channels. Or, you know, when you go to click to use it, maybe there needs to be a little pop-up that says, hey, just so you know, here are some of the risks associated with using this tool. We're excited for you to try it anyway if you'd like, but just know, like, here are some things that could happen. Like, just be upfront with us. I doubt that would scare away that many people, but at least then they'd be informed. YouTube has the biggest voice here to inform creators, and they're choosing not to. I think that is my biggest problem. I think that they don't want to make it so that people aren't confident. They want people to be confident in what they're doing. But I think that people would be way more confident if YouTube would just be honest.
I think, and so many people just want to use it.
Yes.
Myself included.
Yeah.
Even knowing... It's still just kind of fun. Like, well, I know maybe I can't trust it, but I want to run it anyway. So I want to see what's going to happen. And there's plenty of people. Like they're going to have a huge sample size, even if they were really upfront.
Yep.
Even if they were drastically upfront. They still have tons of people willing to use it. Tons. Yep. And I feel like people would respect that they were upfront.
I 100% agree.
We were really appreciative of how upfront they were because when they first asked us to talk, to be honest, my first thought was like, oh yeah, when we brought it to you in beta, you didn't care.
Right.
But now that we made a video about it, suddenly you want to talk to us. They were so nice and they weren't pressuring us to, you know, really change our opinion or especially to change what we're saying publicly.
Yep.
They were just kind of like, you know, we're looking for your feedback. We want to make sure you understand. I would say there was nothing we misunderstood aside from maybe they did say that there's a bigger difference than we would have expected between the beta and the non-beta. especially since when we first brought the information, it sounded like they weren't planning on making big changes. They were just trying to get it out. So that was probably the biggest difference. Is I said, yes, we did change the confidence interval from the beta.
But I think we've been right on. I think testing wise, obviously our sample size is limited, but as far as the tests we were running, our methodology, the way we've been doing it, we were dead on with how YouTube has been testing and running the tool themselves to try and improve it.
Yes.
That's it. So,
which we were wondering. I was thinking, like, is there something that I'm not understanding or missing? Yeah.
It got to the point where, with some of the comments that we saw, like everybody's speculation, we were like, maybe we are missing something. But they pretty much confirmed to us that, no, you're on the right track. This is how we've been running it. This is how we've been testing it. Just takes time, takes data. And hopefully it will improve over time as more people use it. I would just wish that the people using it were more educated on some of the risks. Okay,
2 more quick things.
Yep.
So we have been seeing a lot in comments about, and on our own channels, I don't know what to make of this. I really don't know what to make of this because we've been seeing people say that, once they started the thumbnail test, that their impressions flatline. And we've seen that too. And then we talked to the engineers about that and they're like, well, it doesn't reindex. There's no reason that would happen. Like they're basically saying it's coincidental, which is possible, but it seems weird. And then there's been a couple people, like because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just having like this frequency bias of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like confirmation bias of looking for what I already felt. I feel like this doesn't work. So I'm like noticing more comments that say it doesn't work. So I put them all into a Google Doc and there were only a couple. I think I counted like about 80%. I can go back and look. Definitely when I counted more people saying that it hurt their channel.
Interesting.
Or they thought like, oh, this is the worst video I published in 2 years. And I thought it was a good video, lowest click-through rate of any video I published in years or months. The worst video I've had in a long time performance-wise. And they think thumbnail's pretty good. I think the video's pretty good. A couple people said they saw the opposite. They saw more impressions or a better performing video than usual. And like YouTube saying that means nothing. That no, it doesn't affect that at all. And I guess they didn't say it doesn't affect impressions.
Yeah. I mean, they really did. It was pretty vague.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if there was something algorithmically. Like putting 2 thumbnails up. Just imagine like if you put out one video one day and one video the next day, those thumbnails are going to impact how each video performs. Now put 2 thumbnails on one video, like each version of the video or each version of the thumbnail is going to impact how that video performs, but it's all funneling back to a single video. And so getting the algorithm to work with that correctly, it would not surprise me if it's not consistent yet.
Yeah. They did say to show them. They said, send us what's happening. Like when that happens, send it to us.
Yep.
We're still in contact with them and we'd be happy to pass along anything that you guys are facing. The more information you give us, the better. Because if you're just like, oh, it doesn't work for me, or even, oh, I saw this thing, but it's kind of, hearsay, then it's harder for us to pass along, even if we believe you. So if you want to, email us screenshots or just even the exact numbers and we can pass it along, we would love to do that.
Yeah.
The other thing is a lot of people are asking about TubeBuddy now because they're like, well, do this test with TubeBuddy, and we plan to. There's another thumbnail tester too we're testing out. We're a little skeptical about it. Not sure yet. Might be good. Still have more research to do on that. But then we talked to the TubeBuddy engineers the same day, actually. Meetings were like an hour apart. Kind of got their take on YouTube's thumbnail tester. They were really interested in our video. They had not run tests. I don't believe they had the beta version as early as we did. We talked to them about how theirs working. It sounds like they're making a lot of improvements and we are going to be testing theirs soon.
Yeah.
I imagine they would love to hear feedback too.
Definitely.
We could pass along to them if you guys have any feedback on that feature. So that's a paid feature, but it gives you more data.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a good meeting. They seemed like, good people. They kind of explained how their tool works and told us to, torture test it, make it work, try and run different AA tests, A/B tests. Obviously, it's set up a different way than how YouTube's A/B tester is running. Like you mentioned, Julie, it gives you more data. So anyway, we're going to be running some tests on that. If you guys run tests on that, we'd love to hear how that goes too.
Yeah, we really loved their kind of philosophy on tools. They were very aligned with kind of our values, and we're so hesitant with tools. And obviously, they make a tool, but they're really cool. So I'm excited to, explore that tool more and talk to them some more. So yeah, I think that's.
I think that's it. It was a lot. Yeah, I mean, it was a big meeting. It's been kind of this huge culmination up to this point Obviously, it's not done yet. We're still running tests. So we'll keep you guys updated, let you know what's going on. If you run tests, like you said, let us know so that we can continue to make some waves here.
Yeah. Awesome. See you guys in the comments.
See ya.